What's up, everybody? How's everybody doing this afternoon? Hold up. Getting some feedback over there on the other machine. What's up? How's everybody doing? Man, it was windy as fuck outside. I just took my dog out and it's blew my hair all over the place, man. Jeez, it's so windy out there. How's everybody doing? Again, this is another podcasty kind of direction my content is going episode. Happy Thursday, everybody. This one's another mental health episode, and it's mainly aimed at the boys out there, the men, though I'm sure there'll be women out there. If they watch, I think like 3% of my audience is female according to my analytics, but yeah, it will be mostly aimed at guys, but I'm sure that there's women out there that will identify with this too. And just find it really important, this kind of thing. And if this kind of shit isn't your jam, don't worry, there will be plenty of gaming content coming as well. I'm doing that still as well, but yeah, I'm really enjoying exploring this avenue. So thank you, everybody, for joining and for hanging out if you're here, and if you're watching or if you're listening on Spotify later. I really appreciate it. Just to start off, guys, please, if you enjoy the content, I almost forgot to, I'll do that later. If you enjoy the content, please do a like and share it, and it really helps a lot. Again, you don't need to. You can become a member on YouTube. You can do super chats and all that stuff, but it's not necessary. It's not required. It is appreciated very much when it happens, but again, not doing this for money. Just doing it to help people, to have fun with people, make people laugh, have a good time, and of course, know that if you are going through something shitty, you're not the only person out there that has, and there's other people experiencing the exact same thing. You are definitely not alone. I'm going to tamper a little bit with doing a little bit of music in the background. So please let me know if it's too loud. I'm going to find a song that can kind of, last for a while. Let's see. Let's seeing a bunch. I look at the timestamps for songs on my list, and yeah, it's they're all Tool songs when they're really loud. I don't think Tool is a good background track for this kind of topic. But anyway, guys, so what we're talking about today, and again, let me know if the audio is too loud. I can turn it down if it's overpowering the conversation. I will have it lower, so it should be really quiet now in the background if you can hear it at all. Mostly for Spotify editing purposes later. So, codependency, isolation, and the loss of identity, specifically for men and in relationships, because this is something I've seen a lot of, especially it hits near to home because I, without even knowing it, was codependent. I know a lot of my friends that are married probably are and don't realize it, and it's there's nothing wrong with being dependent on another person for some things. There's nothing wrong with that, but when you become straight up codependent, that's where issues start to crop up, and you see dudes especially. Compromise no longer is a thing. Instead of compromise, you get concession. And I'm pulling up another thing here. Sorry for the lighting effects there. It gets really bad. So before we start, why don't we define codependency? So it basically means emotional dependence. You can be codependent if you're relying on somebody, for finances or stuff. We're all codependent as when we're little kids, and our parents have to pay for all our shit, and take us to the doctor when we're sick and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of us never really grow out of it, dudes especially when it comes to relationships with women. But it means emotional dependence. Your moods and feelings are dependent on how others feel about you. And knowing this as a dude who grew up in like a Christian household, and I know a lot of dudes that can identify with not necessarily growing up in a Christian household, but growing up with this burned into their brain, referring back to one of our earlier episodes, happy wife, happy life bullshit, but also mom ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. But we're made to take responsibility for how other people feel about things. I'm going to talk about my own story first, and again in chat anytime you can chime in. And that squeaky noise is my dog. Hold on, Rosie. We're not playing. We're not playing with toys right now, buddy. After the podcast, okay? Fucking dog. Anyway, sorry about that. What we're doing is I'll go with my experiences. If you guys want to chime in, please do, and I will read out your comments. Then I'm going to talk about people close to me, not giving any names in case any of them listen, but and then go what could be done about it, right? So from my own experience, I never, I was raised with the same mentality that most men are, that women are sugar and spice and everything nice, and that they're like these perfect divine angels that can do no wrong, when reality is far from that. I mean, women have the capability of being just as big a piece of fucking shit as men can be. Just like there are traits that men can have, like when they're underdeveloped, have no masculine father figure, don't have things, had a shitty childhood, had a lot of trauma growing up. They can have a lot of anger issues, get violent. Women can do the same thing, but women, they can be very physically violent as well, but usually they know that's not their sharpest tool in the shed, so instead they're emotionally violent. And that's a bad combination with a dude who's grown up thinking that a woman can do no wrong, is never wrong, and it's his job on this earth to please her and grant her every request, no matter how fucking childish it may be. And so we get trapped in this, when your wife or your girlfriend or whatever is in a bad mood, that you take that on yourself and you try to fix it, which you can't, because dudes in general are fixers and you can't do it. It's impossible. Just like I said in my other podcast, it's impossible to make a miserable cunt happy. You just can't do it. You can't make anyone else happy. A friend, family member, spouse, partner, anything. It's up to you. You can bring them some joy, but the joy is not the same thing. So for my own experience, I mean, for those of you who aren't aware, I've talked about it in multiple videos on streams before. So to give you some background, I was married for about 10 years and married for 9, but we were together for roughly like 11, 12, somewhere around there. And she had severe mental problems, very severe issues. And as time went on, I would always take on, she was kind of an energy vampire because she was always miserable and upset, and I kind of took it on. It was my responsibility to fix that, right? As the good husband, the good guy, I got to do that. And it didn't work at all. And it, blew up in my face, but I began to be a miserable shit too. I began to just be unhappy all the time. I gained a lot of weight. I got fat. I ate a lot of garbage. I drank a lot. I was an alcoholic during that. And it became a real issue. And you feel this like deep sense, and if you can identify with this, you feel this deep sense of pain and a deep sense of anxiety just when something isn't quite right, when she's not quite happy, when that is. And of course you ask, hey, is everything all right? And they go, yeah, it's fine. And then of course they lead on with, I just think it's funny that, and then they list 10 billion things of how much of a fuck up they think you are. But yeah, and I'm not saying all this shit to shit on women. Again, I know that there are a lot of women who probably are in relationships with dudes that behave this way too. It's just more common with women acting this way because they are more emotional than we are. I mean, there's a huge biological difference between how men and women's brains are wired. There's a huge biological difference in how we deal with problems. And you know what? Shitty upbringings negatively impact both genders equally. And especially when there's not a good father around in the house, or if there's a weak, limp dick father in the house that treats his daughter like daddy's little special Disney princess, and it just creates a sense of entitlement in them. And I mean, I grew up, and my parents were not bad parents at all. I love my parents to death. They gave us everything they could. My family was poor up until I was about 14, 15. That's when my dad really started making good money, but never got handed anything. I had to work for stuff. Before I was old enough to legally work, I had chores, and I worked my ass off for anything. If I wanted to skateboard, I had to, weed the entire garden for weeks, and then my dad would buy me one or something like that. And then once I was old enough to get a job, he's like, all right, the only time you're ever getting shit for free now is your birthday, Christmas, and we'll get you some clothes at the beginning of the school year. That was it. Everything else I had to earn and buy myself if I wanted it. Didn't get bought cars, didn't get bought any of that shit. And I'm really thankful for it. But also at the same time, there were definitely times I saw disrespect, you know, from my mom to my dad, and my dad would would kind of bend the knee and just take the shit and not really stand up for himself. It wasn't super common. My mom was pretty sweet, but it was enough for me to notice every once in a while, especially now in hindsight looking back. So in my own marriage, I felt, you know, like the old Robin Williams quote, there's nothing worse than feeling alone in a room full of people, which is kind of how I felt for my whole marriage as well. I didn't really feel like we had anything in common. We had nothing really to talk about, you know, once we knew each other. But I always felt like I was on trial for something I did or didn't do or did or didn't say. And it mentally destroys you over time as a dude. And, you know, and as a dude too, you're taught to just suck it up, eat shit, and be a man and, you know, not say anything. But man, we got to have boundaries. And again, I'm going to go into what to do about it later. I'm going to go on to more stories. Again, if you have anything in chat, feel free to chime in if you have anything to share. But I have some close friends. One in particular, I brought him up in the stream Happy Wife, Happy Life a few weeks ago. And his life is fucking miserable, dude. It's a miserable joke. He's always lying to me and to his other friends and making excuses for why he can't do things, why he can't talk, why he can't hang out. And I know it's because he's embarrassed by how pathetic he feels. He's embarrassed by how he has no spine, how he won't stand up to her, how he won't make himself a priority in his life. And he has no identity. I've known this guy since I was 12 years old, and he's literally a shell of who he used to be. Not even close, not even a shadow or a shell. He's pretty much a dead man walking. You can see it in his eyes and the way he carries himself. But, you know, and he'll just keep eating the shit sandwiches and just to try to make his wife pleased and happy while she does whatever the fuck she wants, you know? And it's, you know, gets her way all the time, and everything that goes wrong is his fault. But he doesn't see it, even though, like, for a while they were separated because she kicked him out of the house. And I was, you know, there for him, and I wasn't trying to get in the middle of it and say, "Hey, dude, just divorce her," or whatever. You know, I didn't tell him to do that. I just said, "Hey, man, if you need a place to crash, I'm here." And he did. He crashed with me for about a month, and he was actually starting to become happier, more like himself, that I remember when he was hanging out with me. But then over time, you know, she pretty much was like, "I can't handle the kids without you here," and so needed a glorified babysitter and told him to come back in. Told him to come back in 3.5 weeks after she kicked his ass out, saying when she kicked him out that she wanted him out for like a few months at least so that they could figure shit out. But yeah, and she threw a tantrum when he said he wanted to separate their finances after that. It was just a whole mess, and it was quite pathetic to watch and sad to watch, you know. And I just did what I could for him, gave him information and content, told him my own experiences. But he's back in it. He's trapped and full of excuses, and I can tell full of pain and unhappiness. And he's told me on many occasions that killing himself always seems like a possible option. When you get a chance, Nick says, when you get a chance, can you give the explanation of codependency being a learned behavior? I am going to go into that, Nick, for sure. So, in fact, we can touch on that now before I get into another story. So, codependency is something that you learn. Again, it's through when you're growing up, right? It's learned behavior. You see your parents codependent on each other, or you know, siblings codependent on each other. Your parents do a shitty job of raising you and make you codependent. It's over time you learn that, or you learn, and the bad habits that you need approval from other people, especially people that, you know, you're dating or you're in a relationship with. You need their approval or you can't be happy, and also that you can't let go and enjoy yourself even if there are people you care about around you that are not happy, right? You're taking on the burdens of other people. You learn this in childhood, and as you grow up, it sticks with you. It's it's a learned behavior. The same way that now you see, you know, all these narcissistic thoughts and all these douchebags on TikTok and Instagram these days on the internet, that they learned that behavior because they, you know, they probably didn't have a dad around. Their mom might have been addicted to drugs or alcoholic, or just didn't have time because she was working so much because she was a single mom, or whatever the case may be. And they need attention. They feel starved for attention, so they start doing this shit online. They have no values, no standards, no anything really. And so what they do is they project that out there, right? And they're so dependent on affirmation and approval from other people because they never got it when they were young, right? Or they didn't get enough of it. And what other people think of them, especially if the other person is a spouse or a partner, is the most important. And it's a real surefire way, man, to be a weak bitch as a dude, to be codependent. And again, it's fine if you're dependent on some people for some things. I mean, we're human beings. 99% of us are social animals. We do desire to pair bond. We do desire to have people around, you know, that we can trust and rely on and be part of a community or a group. So some dependency is not bad if it's moderated and under control, but that's not what you see in most marriages these days. Also, was your buddy working? How many kids did he have with that woman? Yes, my buddy is a blue collar worker. He works his ass off, like literally batters his body, 45, 50 hours a week. And she just quit work for no reason. Just says, I want to be a stay-at-home mom. They have 3 kids. She was working their whole marriage up to this point. Said, I just want to quit now. And she just sits home now. And they have all 3 of their kids are in school. I think their oldest kid is 13. Their middle kid is, I think, 8 or 9. And their youngest just started, I want to say kindergarten this year. But they have 3. And she just wants to, as far as I know, as far as I can tell, she wants to just grow weed and smoke pot and stay home while he busts his ass. So now he's trying to figure out how to make his one income, which in this society and this fucked up inflation and this terrible economic the system we're in now, because of all the fucking commies, because of all that, surviving on a single person's income is next to impossible. And so now they're paycheck to paycheck, can't save anything because she just doesn't want to work, and he's going to put up with it. He's just going to go, okay, and keep eating that shit sandwich. So yeah, it's pretty bad. And he's just one friend, man. I mean, it's so hard to fight codependent tendencies. I have another friend who is very codependent and has to have the approval, and it's really sad that so many relationships, romantically speaking, whether they just be dating, living together, or married, really looks like the dynamic, and this is again because of the rampant single motherhood and all that shit, but the dynamic resembles more of a child and a mom than it does partners working together as a team, Sounds like because they have the kids, she's using it as a weapon. Oh, 100% for sure. I can guarantee you that if they had no kids, she would have left him, or he would have, wisened the fuck up and said, I'm not putting up with this. But I know the kids have been used as a weapon. I've seen it firsthand, 100% for sure. That's one of the, especially with the laws, the divorce laws and everything the way they are right now, that's 100% a tool for someone's a tool that can be used. And here's what I want to get into with this whole thing of how do you fix it? Well, I know there's a lot of tropes on there, especially in the red pill community, things like that, where all women are evil, trash, and shit. And then on the other side of the coin, the hardcore feminists, all men are shit and all men should die and shit. Both are totally shit. The people that use kids against you, the women that use kids against you and go into marriages planning on divorce so they can take your money, or all this stuff, like all these terrible things that could happen to you via the state laws from a woman towards a man. They're real, they're dangerous, but men are accountable too, because men don't vet chicks enough. They're like, oh, they get a smell of that pussy, and they're like, I gotta get in there, right? They let their sex drive control them. And then on top of that, you have to look for... People only use tools like this to hurt other people when they themselves are very, very damaged and haven't healed, haven't gone, you know, fixed themselves, haven't seen therapists, haven't accepted and recognized their own terrible childhood, perhaps, what they've gone through, and instead they take it out on everybody else. And those are pretty big red flags, and they're pretty easy to spot within a handful of months of dating somebody. You can see, because everybody has baggage, right? Everybody has trauma. Everybody has shit that they need to heal from and fix, men and women both. But the ones that don't even attempt to do that, they're the ones that are going to fuck you over, right? The ones that haven't addressed it. Because if you're saying, I'm only going to ever, you know, if you're into dating, if you want to date, I don't know if you are, no judgment either way. But if you want to date, if you go into it with a mindset of you're going to find this person, you know, man or woman who has no baggage, who, you know, is perfect and had the perfect childhood upbringing, you're never going to find anybody. That's for sure. Especially in this day and age where, you know, the family has been attacked by the left so hard that it's been absolutely destroyed. The nuclear family's been destroyed, and even if it hadn't been destroyed, it would be impossible to have one in the same way that a lot of traditionalists think they want a relationship, because of how worthless our own currency is in the United States and in the West in general, because of all the fucking idiots and commies running everything. So that can't exist. You need to let that go, right? And what you need to find if you're going to date is someone who is aware of their trauma, is aware of the damage that's been done to them, and has fixed it or is actively fixing it, right? And I don't mean actively fixing it by getting on prescription meds, right? Yeah, trust the pharmaceutical company. Don't forget, pharmaceutical company is not in the business of healing people. They're in the business of getting people addicted to their product and treating a disease, not curing a disease. All pills do is numb you to the trauma that happened to you. It's not a fix. Actually seeing a professional therapist and getting help and going through your issues and fixing them and fixing your own mindset and your patterns and behaviors is what will make you better, not drugs. Vetting is very, very important. You should always be vetting, right? And you need to be very clear. So let's move on now to how do you if you're codependent, because a lot of people, man, are more codependent than they think, right? Every single one of us has issues. There's a single person on the planet that's perfect, right? We all have our own personal story, and our upbringing and our stories are what created our mindsets and our current beliefs. But I mean, I think almost everybody has some form of codependency issue, and I think it's simply in our nature it's in our nature to want to be loved and give love to other people. And of course, there's times where we want to be alone. That's me. Like, I love being alone and having a few days by myself. That's how my batteries recharge, because I'm at best an ambivert, but I'm mostly an introvert. But we also want to feel like we're valued by by people we care about, and we want to value them. It becomes a problem when your own mind and your own feelings are influenced heavily by somebody that's not you, right? Because we have no control over other people. We never have and never will. We can't control other people. Essentially, the same with you. You can't be controlled by somebody. You can only give people only have as much power over you as you give to them. But when all of the validation we get is through someone other than ourselves, it creates a validation-seeking mentality that really fucks you up. And that's what true negative codependency is. You're not happy unless you've got love from other people. That, at the end of the day, that's essentially what it boils down to. The belief that you're just not good enough without the fulfillment and love and admiration of other people. And this is a very shit mindset. And always, if you're in a relationship, friendships, and I say relationship, I mean partner, spouse, your children, your friends. It's very shit because it's going to cause problems in those relationships. Being codependent is awful, and when it gets so extreme that it consumes your life, I mean, it's almost impossible to break, right? It's a learned behavior and it's a habit. So how do we get out of something like that? First of all, if you're with someone who you feel is codependent, you can't fix it. All you can do is set boundaries. You need to set very clear boundaries of what's okay and what's not. And when somebody crosses that boundary, you need to tell them, hey, you crossed a boundary. You need to punish them. And by punish them, I don't mean you punch them in the face, though I'm sure you may feel like it. When they cross a boundary, you say, hey, I don't like this. Please don't do that again. I'm not going to want to be around you if you do that. And if they apologize and then don't do it again, move on. It's fine. But if they apologize and then keep doing it, you need to cut them out of your life. Or if they apologize, or if they don't apologize at all and just don't care, then they shouldn't be in your life either, regardless of what their relationship is to you. I don't care if they're fucking family. You get rid of them. Don't talk to them anymore. Don't associate with them. Don't waste your fucking time on them. So you need to set very, very clear boundaries with everyone in your life of what's okay, what's not. Because remember, the second you meet anybody, especially a partner or a potential, partner, romantically speaking, and friends too, you're teaching them, you're training them how you want to be treated, right? Because if you put up with some bullshit codependency, super clingy girlfriend, for example, for years, and then out of nowhere you're like, hey, you're being too clingy, you're coming out of left field according to her, because you never, all of a sudden it's like, wait, how come I've been behaving this way towards you for decades, and now all of a sudden you're not okay with it, right? You need to be clear up front what your boundaries are, what your values are. Nick says, I was and am currently in a similar situation in a divorce with a minor child and have been going back and forth to court for 5 years due to issues regarding parenting and time sharing. Dude, that's fucking rough. That sucks. I'm curious what you do you feel in your relationship, you or her or both of you were codependent to some degree? And I'll keep going, and when you respond, I'll go through your response. Because we have to set boundaries, and when you see someone's codependent, because you're the only person in their life, like, it's a red flag if someone you're dating has no friends, right? They don't have any friends to talk to. You're everything to them. That's toxic as fuck. If you're everything to them, they don't talk to their family. They don't really have family members. They don't have friends. They don't have hobbies. They don't have passions of their own. They don't have a life of their own. And you become the center of their universe. That's codependent as fuck, and you shouldn't be involved with that person. They have a lot of trauma, and they're looking for you to fix it. That's what that means. You need to have your shit together. And what that also means, when you notice yourself being codependent, think of a state of Zen, right? We all, trying my best to answer that question, I don't know. Well, yeah, keep mulling it over in your mind. As men, especially, we feel emotions the same as women do, but I think women experience them more intensely. What both genders need is we need to master emotional regulation, and this is harder for women than it is for men to do. Men just, I know there are exceptions to the rule, but men generally tend to be more logical and reason, even to the point of being a robot like me. My girlfriend says I'm a robot sometimes, and it's true. But we still feel the emotions. We just don't deal with them in the same way that women deal with theirs. Emotional regulation is really, really important. When you master emotional regulation, so you feel something, you let yourself feel that emotion, but then you find a logical path in your mind to why you feel that way and what to do about it, as opposed to, I'm mad, so I'm going to scream, right? You're like, I'm mad, okay, what am I mad about? What made me feel mad? And then you can go through, okay, am I mad because they legitimately disrespected me or crossed a boundary or treated me poorly? Or am I mad because I interpreted what they did as such because of my past trauma that I haven't healed yet, right? That I haven't taken care of. And you got to train your brain to do that with all really raw emotions, right? If you act immediately on a raw emotion, you lose. Because once you get there, your body and your mind and everything will be complete in a state of Zen, and you'll be able to quash your own codependency. You said it was very toxic, Nick. I'm curious, like what to you defines as toxic? Like what kind of behaviors did you witness in that relationship that's gone to shit? So having your shit together, it simply means you're not affected by others' thoughts and opinions of you, right? Obviously, if you hurt someone's feelings and they, like you say something really mean, to your partner or your friend, and they're kind of pissed, and they explain to you why it made them feel that way, and you think it makes sense, you should apologize, right? You're like, oh yeah, I didn't see it that way. But but you can't walk on eggshells, right? You can't tiptoe around them all the time. You got to be able to be yourself, especially around someone you're living with or plan to live with or married to or whatever, right? I walked on eggshells for a decade in my marriage, and I'll never fucking do it again. If I feel like I can't be myself and can't say what I want and can't walk on it and can't, do my thing, I'm not going to stay in it. It's not worth my fucking time. And I wouldn't want them either. I wouldn't want, like, for example, my current girlfriend right now, like if she felt that way, I wouldn't want her to stay if she felt like she couldn't be herself around me. And I don't think she would. I mean, she's got too much self-respect. And that's what it boils down to, right? Self-respect. If people don't like you, especially if they're strangers or have a negative opinion of you, fuck them. Move on with your life. Who cares? And when it comes to someone that's not a stranger, like a close friend, a family member, or a partner, you can't let their negativity bring you down, because again, that's what I did for 10 years. Her constantly being depressed and negative made me the same over time, because I took on those emotions myself, because then I felt like a failure because I couldn't fix them for her, right? Because again, as men were told, we're fixers, and we are fixers by biologically, but we're told that like our partner's happiness is more important than our own, and that's fucking hog shit. I would say that we were codependent due to the fact that there were arguments that I felt like I wanted to leave the relationship, but due to the child, I felt like I had to try to make it work more than I normally would. Okay, so here's another question for you, Nick. What were the arguments about? And when you did argue, like how did you guys fight? Did you guys fight fair? Did you just talk, or was there screaming and yelling and name calling and that kind of shit? Because that'll indicate some more. That'll shed some more light on your situation. Because emotional regulation is super, super important. Most people these days don't have it. They can't do it, right? Every single emotion you feel can be traced back to something legitimate, usually from our past, that we either haven't addressed or have forgotten about. And that's why we need emotional regulation. And you need to set very clear boundaries. You need to tell people what your values are, and you need to not back down on them, right? And if someone violates your boundaries, you need to cut them repeatedly and doesn't apologize. You need to cut them the fuck out of your life. They're cancer to your emotions, to your soul, to your fucking brain, to your body. People let themselves go, right? Because I was like that too. I couldn't enjoy myself in anything that I love to do. Gaming, skateboarding, reading, watching a movie. I couldn't engage in any of those things when I knew my partner was upset, even if she wasn't necessarily upset at me. But it's just something, and I took those on, and I think as dudes, we really, really do that. And we turn ourselves into fucking martyrs. The arguments always felt like they were tied more than what the details of what the arguments were. Some arguments were name calling. Okay. Felt like they were tied more to... So, you're saying they were arguments for argument's sake. All right, well, here's an even better question for you, Nick, man. When you initially met your ex-wife, what drew you to her? Why did you want to marry her in the first place? I'm wondering if it, like me, you felt it was just that time, right? She showed you some kind of attention and affection, and you felt like it was just you're at that age when you should be doing that. You should be getting married, right? Because your friends and family are, or whatever. And so you should get married because it's the next step in life, right? Quote unquote. I'm wondering if that's what you did, even though your gut was screaming at you, man, don't do this. Don't do it. I'm curious if you had a similar experience to me in that regard. Because that's how I felt. I knew I shouldn't have got married when I did. And to the person that I did, I knew it. I did it anyway. And luckily, I got off better than most dudes in divorce. I got out a lot better than most dudes did. But yeah, I didn't. She got pregnant, and I was trying to do the right thing. I was 22. Okay, so you were young and stupid. Okay, and you're about to turn 30 now. Okay, yeah, I'm about 40. I got married when I was 26. So she got pregnant, and you were trying to do the right thing. I get it. Unfortunately, the right thing. And please tell me you guys were using protection, but if you don't want to tell me, that's fine. It's none of my business. But unfortunately, in that situation, the right thing would have been to either put it up for adoption, or like if you're not super pro-life, to get an abortion early on or something, because or not necessarily marry. You could have even gone the route, if you want to have this kid, I'll help you support it with child support, but you wouldn't have had to pay her alimony because you weren't married. That probably would have been better. But I mean, again, hindsight's 20/20. You can't go back and change it now. So that my comment there, I guess, is irrelevant. But it's as men, she didn't want to get an abortion. Okay, I mean, you could have still just not married her and been like, I don't want a kid, but I'll help. If you're gonna keep it, I'll pay for it, or put it up for adoption, or whatever. I don't know. But again, it doesn't matter what you could have done. That's not what happened. So, as men, it's interesting that you said the right thing, right? You said, I wanted to do the right thing. As men, we're conditioned, and it's, again, more learned behavior and more learned brainwashing, if you will, from society, that the right thing is never us. The right thing is never our own happiness, our own well-being, our own peace of mind, our own finances, our own living situation, what have you. The right thing is never us. We're supposed to sacrifice all the time, be walking ATM machines, workhorse mules, right? We're disposable, essentially. We're walking wallets to a lot of women and a lot of people in general, the government especially, right? I mean, men are the majority taxpayers. That's a statistical fact. But we're taught that we're not a priority. And I saw that in my own life, my own marriage. I was not a priority in my life at all. My own happiness didn't matter compared to hers and other people's. Mostly hers. My family's happiness. I did a better job than most in fighting, trying to appease what my parents wanted, because I didn't really follow their path at all. But that's what, as dudes, we're taught, and we feel shame, and we are shamed, and we feel like shit if we don't do it, right? If we don't give in and sacrifice our own happiness and our own lives for someone who's unappreciative and doesn't give a fuck, right? I mean, we go die in wars for people that don't know us and hate us. That's just been our role for so long. I'm not necessarily bitching about it. I'm saying that's just how it is, and society's not going to change. That's never going to change in society's eyes, at least not while we're alive. So instead, what we need to do is fix our own brainwashing and our own programming. We need to become priorities. Even when you have a partner or a spouse that you love really much, like a lot, that you love more than anything, right? And you have kids that you love more than anything, obviously they should be near the top of your list priority. But in my opinion, at the end of the day, no other being other than yourself, should be the center of your universe, for the main reason being that other beings we can't control, we can't manipulate. I mean, we can manipulate them, but that's toxic to do that. But we can't control them. We can't make their decisions for them. So if you put something that's always changing as the center of your universe, or has the potential to change, you're going to be fucking miserable. Because you'll sacrifice and make concessions over and over and over to try to keep them in that happy space, which you can't do. While if you're always the center of your universe, with the people you love really close to you in that center, but you're still the core center, you're in a much better position to succeed and be happy yourself and be content yourself. Again, being content is what you should aim for, not happy. Happiness, like anger, sadness, grief, loss, they're all temporary emotions. They're temporary feelings. You can't chase happiness, but if you find and chase and get contentment, you can get it. Happiness is a moving target. Nick says she didn't want to get an abortion. Okay. Also, I felt like she would have been harder to deal with as a single mother, cheaper to keep her, and I was scared of her being wild with my child, so I thought it was a good idea. What if you... I mean, and this is just for dudes that might be in a similar situation to you were back then, because obviously you can't do anything about this right now. Did you think about possibly, after the kid is born, trying to get more custody of the kid yourself? I know as a dude that's near impossible, but it's an option to try. Get a good divorce lawyer, a good custody lawyer, and if you were really worried that she'd be an unfit mom, try to get primary custody. But again, there are options, and it's much harder as a dude in these kind of situations because courts don't side with us really when it comes to children at all. But as you're finding out now very clearly, Nick. But again, it sucks when you look back and you learn lessons now that you wish your parents would have taught you. You know, how to be safe, how to take care of yourself better, and how to make yourself a priority. But that's just not what society's interested in, right? Society right now definitely views and pushes women as sex objects, and a lot of women just buy into it, and that's why you see this rampant, Instagram and OnlyFans thoughtery, because they have no self-respect, they weren't taught values or boundaries, and they still want the attention to learn behavior of codependency. And they're out there ruining their lives and their chances to find any real happiness out there. But they're taught that all that matters is their sex appeal, and dudes are taught that they're commodities, that they're accessories and they're walking wallets, right? That we're success objects. And so it's both looking at either side that way is fucking cancer, right? It's not good for anybody. I'm kind of working on that now. Yeah, Nick, Godspeed with that, man. That's fucking rough. But I think let's see, how long have we been going now? We've been going for about 45 minutes. I wish I had more guidance. Yeah, and that's the thing, man. I think it's my dog crying. Hold on, Rosie. I think take his other toy away. I think one of the biggest problems, one of the biggest problems in the West anyway, you don't see this as much in like Asian cultures or in Indian cultures and things like that. You don't really see this as much because they don't have all the toxic shit that the fringe third wave feminism brought or any of that stuff, or that they haven't been 100% infiltrated in all cases by China aside, the commies. But when you have no guidance as a child, just the rampant missing masculine father figures that kids need. Kids need their dad when they're really young, and their guidance, and their strong masculine presence just as much as they need a mom with a good feminine presence and who also doesn't put up with shit. A lot of and this is a side note, a lot of women seem to think being feminine means you're weak, and it's absolutely not. It's your biggest strength, but I digress. They need both, right? And when they're missing one, it creates trauma and damage, and that's where the codependency and lack of guidance comes from. The shit show of our society that we see today is largely due to no guidance, Nick. It's largely due to no one having an outlet, no one being taught how to set boundaries and how to have values and how to have self-respect and how to make your own life a priority. And how to have morals, right? It's all fucking out the window now. Everyone's just a degenerate piece of shit. But let's go ahead and wrap this discussion up. Again, my podcasts where there's no gaming, well, generally I try to keep them to an hour and a half. If you've enjoyed it so far, please leave a like. If you're on Spotify, thumbs it up. What's up, V-Man? How can you identify a toxic relationship? Well, there are a lot of ways. First off, how A really good rule of thumb, and this is something that I learned in my horrible marriage, and I learned especially in a handful of women that I've dated since I got back to dating. How does the other person make you feel about yourself? And again, that might, you think, well, isn't that codependency? No, it's not needing approval from them. It's how do they make you feel about yourself? Are they always tearing you down? Are they clinging to you and get jealous and mad when you do stuff without them? Are they constantly up your ass, going through your personal shit without your permission? Like, it's clearly signs that they don't trust you. Are they doing shady shit, that you can notice, like shady behavior, trying to hide something, lying to you all the time? But ultimately, all that stuff makes you. How does that person make you feel about yourself? Is the first thing. The second way, that's the first step, right? If they make you feel good about yourself and they're supportive and encouraging and respectful, that's a good sign, right? The second sign you need to look for when looking for seeing if a relationship is toxic, is how do they treat themselves too, right? Do they have boundaries, values, and morals? And then the third step, once you answer that, the answer to that is yes, is do they respect your boundaries that you set up? Do they fight fair? When you have disagreements, can you guys just talk about it like adults? Sometimes agree to disagree? Or does one of you or both of you or her or whatever throw a fucking tantrum like a 3-year-old? Name call, throw things, get violent. That's toxic. Vina says, the reason I ask is because I moved in with a girl the other week after dating 3 years, and I'm starting to second guess it. Ooh, interesting. Do tell, V-Man. What's making you second guess it? Let's take a look at that situation, man. I'm gonna grab a snack here. Oh, is the music still playing in the background? Oh, it's Bloodhound Gang. That's probably not the best thing. We're gonna go back to the fields. My bad, guys. So we'll do that. I'm really interested, V-Man, in your story, brother. What's going on? But because if you dated for 3 years and you only lived with her now for a week, and you're like, fuck, I want to know what's going on. Because that's not a good sign, man. But I'll do my best to help you figure out why. But we need to conquer, while V-Man's, typing up a story if he chooses to, we need to conquer our own stuff. Well, as we have been dating, she's always had what I would consider emotional problems. Okay, so like we talked about earlier, no emotional regulation, right? And family problems, okay? The first 2 years, these situations were never directed at me. But slowly, the past year, I have become the target, seemingly setting her off more and more. Okay, here's what you need to do, man. She clearly has trauma. You said family problems, right? She has trauma from her childhood growing up. She's got issues. Obviously, she has no emotional regulation. She doesn't know how to control her emotions and work through them in her head before she speaks. She's lashing out at you, and I think the only reason why you didn't see that in the past is because, again, you weren't living together, right? It's not you're living together, you're the target because you're around all the time. That's a fucking problem. What I would do in your situation, man, this is what I would do. Because this isn't so broken it can't be fixed, but you've got a decision to make. And I'm telling you, V-Man, I mean this in the nicest way possible, because I know how easy it is to go, okay, that makes sense, and actually believe what I'm going to tell you, but then you don't act on it. I know as a dude how hard it is for us to act on these things. It's so toxic how we've been raised to, just please her and make sure she's happy and eat a shit sandwich with corn ourselves, right? Don't do that. Please take this advice. First, you need to tell her that that's not okay, that you don't deserve to be treated that way. and that you won't put up with it. Say, unless you want to be kind and sweet to me and talk to me like an adult, I'll be in the other room. I'm not going to deal with this. I'm not okay with how you're talking to me and how you're blaming me for this. You need to be very clear. Set your boundaries very clearly, what you will not tolerate. The behavior you won't tolerate from her. And if she keeps doing it, and if you keep it up and keep doing it, I'm leaving and not coming back. Second, you need to say, I think this is coming from shit that you've never resolved. I don't think you need to be on meds, but you need to tell her that she needs to find a good therapist, man. She needs to start figuring out how to emotionally regulate. In fact, CBT and DBT, those are the two therapy methods that are most beneficial for reframing your mind and emotional regulation. She needs to see a professional. And if she's unwilling to and doesn't want to and says, I don't need to, because seeing a therapist, man, I think everybody needs a therapist. Seeing a therapist doesn't make you crazy. But if she's like, I'm not going to do that, I'm not, and refuses to get help, you need to fucking bounce. You need to leave. Be like, this ain't working for me. If you're unwilling to work on this and I have to constantly leave the room and leave conversations, because you're acting like a child and pushing my boundaries and crossing boundaries I've set up for myself, then I'm not staying. It's not worth it for me to stay. That is, and you need to be cool, not raise your voice, just be calm about it. Like, I'm not putting up with this behavior. I'm not allowing myself to be treated that way. For example, a singular random incident happened over cooking dinner. Okay, I was cutting up some onions and threw them into the pan. I can cook. I'm not retarded. Yeah, I hear you, brother. And it wasn't the size she wanted. Okay. So instead of being adult saying, oh, I wanted a smaller size or I wanted a bigger one, can you do that? Well, I'm guessing she threw a tantrum. What did she do, man? Bitches be crazy. Nah, I'm fucking. What did she do, man? Because I already see where this is going. It wasn't the size she wanted. It threw her into an absolute seething rage and lasted for the rest of the night. Though the next day she apologized and says she was stressed over work and her sister's impending wedding. Name calling. Yeah, that's not okay. So what you need to do, man, even though she apologized, it's going to happen again, right? You need to say, hey, I get that you were upset about other things, but I am not your punching bag. I'm not going to be treated that way. I refuse. And if you start acting that way, I'm going to leave the room. And if you refuse to get help, because she's projecting all of her past trauma, man. Something with her sister, clearly, her family problems. She's probably jealous that she's getting married, that her sister's getting married and she's not. But she's taking it out on you. That's not acceptable, man. Exactly in my first statement. Remember, I said, and name calling is never okay. Only fucking children name call. But I said right at the beginning, how does she make you feel? That probably made you feel like shit, right? When she started yelling at you, you need to put your damn foot down and be like, no, you will not raise your voice to me. You will not talk to me that way. I will not accept this behavior. I'm not your punching bag. If you're frustrated at something else, you can't take it out on me. Unhinged is a word that comes to mind. Her sister is a twin, and there are some serious issues among the family. Yeah, and you know what? She may never be able to resolve those issues between her siblings with them themselves, but she can resolve how she feels and how she thinks about it and how she frames it in her mind if she gets professional help from a therapist. You need to put your foot down, man. I mean, let me ask you this. Here's the best way for men out there, dudes, guys. The best way for you to figure out if something is toxic or is okay in a relationship, and you can cut out all the shit and figure this out instantly, replace your wife or your girlfriend in your mind with your best guy friend. How would you react if your best guy friend, like one of your bros, right, did what your spouse or partner did? What would your reaction be? And I guarantee you that 100% of the time you would not put up with that shit. In fact, your friend would probably catch a fist in the mouth. Obviously, you don't want to hit your spouse. I'm not telling you to. That's bad. Don't hit people. Don't put your hands on people. But if you wouldn't tolerate that behavior from your best friend, why are you doing it from somebody that's supposed to be closer to you than that? The next moment, she's the sweetest thing ever, almost considering she's bipolar or something. I don't think she's bipolar. Bipolar is like different personalities. She's probably somewhere on the spectrum of borderline personality disorder. In fact, the vast majority of women are on some form of the spectrum of BPD. And BPD has a very, very negative stigma around it. It has a, it makes people think that people go unhinged all the time. There's a huge spectrum. So one person on this end wouldn't even be a blip on your radar to someone who's on this end, right? And BPD is not a chemical imbalance in your brain. It's learned behavior. It's learned behavior from past childhood traumas. No one's born with BPD. It's something you learn through behaviors, and it's something that actually can be, if you do the research and look online, BPD people can recover fully and have no symptoms at all anymore just through the right therapy, right? Just through reframing and learning how to regulate their own emotions. Because all BPD is it's on some level they can't regulate their emotions. Their emotions burst out, right? Negative and positive, which is why when you're with someone with BPD that doesn't have it under control, you don't need meds for it either. But that just numbs things. I'm totally against mental pharmaceutical meds in my opinion. But like someone who has BPD, if they're, and this applies to dudes too, if they have it under control, you wouldn't even know that they have it. And in fact, they're in recovery, they're in remission from it. They don't really have it anymore once they've trained for years with a therapist and gotten it under control. But it's just they have no ability to emotionally regulate because they were fucked and stunted and abused and probably molested as a kid, right? Which is not their fault. Overall, it's just a series of events similar or somewhat worse than my silly example. We aren't married and have a year lease, just considering worst case, as I do love her. Well, man, if you love her, you need to tell her the truth. Wrap it up. Don't get her pregnant, that's for sure. Because, yeah, but so many people, most of us are damaged, especially if you're in your 30s or 40s by now. You're a very damaged person, everybody, myself included. It's just all about healing and accepting your flaws and finding out how you can be a better person, right? There's nothing wrong with being weak. There is definitely something wrong with staying weak. Don't be a pussy. Don't be a bitch. Just stand up for yourself, right? You need to set boundaries. If you really love her, you need to set boundaries and tell her you're not going to tolerate that behavior, and she needs to get professional help to solve her past childhood trauma issues, right? And if she refuses, you need to get the fuck out. Buy out your lease if you have to. Don't sit there for a year and be miserable, because then you open yourself up to traps such as her poking holes in condoms or not taking her birth control to get her pregnant and get her to stay. That shit happens all the time. So you need to protect yourself, man. You need to be the center of your universe. You need to be your top priority. Your happiness, peace of mind, contentment needs to be your top priority all the time. And if the person you're dating is healthy, they're the top priority. You're both happy individuals separately, and then together you don't complete each other. You just get along, right? And when you have disagreements or problems, you talk through it. If someone's throwing a tantrum and flipping the fuck out, that's not healthy, and you got to not tolerate that behavior. But both Nick and V-Man, thank you guys for sharing your stories and your thoughts. That's what I would do, V-Man, in your situation. So let's go ahead with the codependency wrap up here. And this is in the same vein of the advice I just gave. Conquering codependency and succeeding in any kind of relationship, I'm not just talking romantic, friendships, relationships with your family, shit. It just requires work. And it shouldn't be so much work that it feels like a job, right? That's another bad sign, but it just requires work. And where the work is not on the other person. You're not working to fix them. That's a fool's errand, and it's stupid. You're absolutely welcome, V-Man. It's stupid to do that. It requires work on yourself all the time. Be better today than you were yesterday, right? Take accountability and responsibility, men and women, for your own flaws and your own imperfections, because we're all not perfect. But mostly, you don't have to take accountability for past trauma because it's not your fault, but you do need to take responsibility for fixing it. It's not somebody else's job to fix you, and it's not our job as men to fix women's problems either. Because trust me, I've been there. I was codependent, and I didn't even see it until after the damage was done, right? So a good way to get out of codependency, again, set goals, achieve goals, whether the goals are professional, even small goals like, exercise, weight loss, set boundaries, make your values and your boundaries very clear to the people in your life that you care about. Know yourself. Know what you want, know what you need, know what your vision for your life is, and then pursue it. And don't let anyone else get in the way. The good people in your life will help you pursue that. They won't try to pull you down and criticize you and bring you down. If you have someone that's criticizing you all the time, no matter what their relationship is to you, trying to bring you down and hold you back from what you want, fucking cut them out. Get rid of them. You don't need it. There are 8 billion people on this planet. You can do with getting rid of some. You've got to have boundaries. You can't be afraid of setting them and holding people to them, especially yourself. Even if it makes your partner upset. If they get mad that they cross a boundary, you shouldn't be with that person. Weak boundaries just lead to you getting abused at the end of the day. And don't be fooled. Some of these women, some of these bitches be crazy, man, and they can get violent. Can get really violent, or they can get even worse than, being violent. I mean, again, back to my original friend at the beginnings of the stream. He told me subtly once when we were drinking that she beats his ass. That she fucking hits him, dude. It's sad. And I know most people, because he's a dude, won't believe that he gets hit, and he probably feels like a weak pussy. But if he set boundaries right at the gate, he would have been out of that relationship a long time ago. But like I said, in your case, V-Man, it's even more dangerous than violence is if they try to sabotage you financially or sabotage you by getting pregnant on purpose, but saying it's an accident, right? We all need to be on a journey, guys, to be better than we were yesterday. To be exceptional, right? To piss fucking excellence. We need to be very clear about what we want and our boundaries and everything. And stick to them, man. Don't let people walk on you. Obviously, we all want to be loved and we want to give love. But getting love should never be because we sacrificed ourselves, right? If you're sacrificing everything just for the small drip feed of affection and love from somebody else, that's the wrong relationship to be in, man. But anyway, guys, that pretty much wraps it up. Thanks so much, guys, for participating and for sharing your stories. I know it's not easy to talk about these things, especially as dudes, because we really don't have support systems the same way that women do. And we don't verbalize a lot of shit because we're embarrassed. I totally get it. Totally understand. That's why I wanted to start doing at least one of these podcasts every other week to talk about men's issues, and things that we face as dudes, as gamer dudes, as and then we go back to the gaming and have fun and have some drinks and have a good time outside of that. But thanks, guys, so much for showing up and for talking. Again, all my podcasts, if you liked it, like, share. You can watch it here on YouTube. It stays up there. But I'm also putting all of these up to Spotify by the next day. So if you're cruising in your car, you want to listen on Spotify, more than welcome to. All of the support really helps me out, guys. Thanks so much. Take care of yourselves, guys. If you ever need to talk about something in this vein that I've talked about and you have no one else to talk to, please reach out to me on my private Discord. Become a member. My Discord link's all over my YouTube channel. But I'll be in here if you need it, and I'll give you advice when I can. I won't always be immediately available, but I do check those. So thanks, guys. Next week we're going to be playing some games, and then another gaming topic for next week's podcast. Still figuring out what that is, but again, it'll be posted on my page when I decide. So as always, my friends, keep it real.